I am not an expert on Paul or Romans, but I do have a few pointers in chapter 7 that I think might help.
So here it says, the woman has a husband bound by the law as long as he lives, but if the husband dies, she is released from the law of her husband. You have also become dead to the law through the body of Christ, that you may be married to another, to him who was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to God.
So the law came with a curse. If you disobeyed it, you were going to die. But it also came with blessings if you obeyed it. The leaders of the church in Yeshua's time were teaching the doctrine of men. They were adding to the instructions of the Father and teaching it as though it were the law. Instead of obeying the Father out of love, they were obeying out of duty. And so in that way, that law was the law of death. Paul is saying that when we follow out of our hearts, we are following the way that Jesus wanted us to. So following the true instructions of the Father, like Jesus told us to, would be the new life of the Spirit. But in case that is not making a lot of sense, let's look at what Paul says in chapter 7 about the Torah.
Is the law sin? Certainly not. On the contrary, I would not have known sin except through the law. Therefore, the law is holy, and the commandments holy, and just and good. Torah is good. For I delight in the law of God according to the inward man.
So Paul says that following the Torah is not sin. He says that it is a good thing, that it is just, that it is holy. He says that he delights in following the law of God. Paul is discussing how his flesh wants him to sin, but the Spirit of God is leading him to obey. But in the end, Paul says that the Torah is good and that the instructions of the Father are righteous and holy. For me, it all comes down to what Peter said about Paul's writings.
We're in 2 Peter 3:15. Peter is talking about the letters that Paul has written to the churches. He says in all of his epistles, speaking in them some things in which are hard to understand, which untaught and unstable people twist to their own destruction, as they do the rest of Scriptures. He says, be steadfast, do not be led away with the error of the wicked. That wickedness there is also called lawless.
We have to be stable and we have to stand firm on the knowledge that Yeshua taught the instructions of his Father and his apostles taught them and kept them as well.